Welcome into Pick 6 presented by KFAN. We've got a special guest with Gabe, Henderson, and myself today. Courtney Cronin filling in for PA. We're really happy to have you here because you just accepted an exciting new opportunity with ESPN in Chicago.
Yeah, it's bittersweet leaving. I've done so much work here at VEN over the last couple of years, and I really have appreciated my time. I mean, this is state of the art, and I've really enjoyed getting to cover a team that puts this much effort and emphasis on its own team coverage. And I think that, Vikings fans are very fortunate that they've got kind of everything really well-rounded from local media to the way that the team covers the team.
Well, yeah, and we've been really fortunate that you've been willing to come on shows like this with us. So as this kind of your one last hurrah here on the Viking side of things.
Victory tour.
Right? It is somewhat, isn't it? Yeah, we're going to get going with number one. The question is, who do you think is the most underrated Vikings hire so far? So, Courtney, you got 30 seconds on the clock. You get to answer this one first.
So I told you pre-show that I was going to cheat on this because it's technically not a new hire. It's a retainment of wide receivers coach Keenan McCardle. I think that he is such a tremendous asset and a resource for this group. You have Justin Jefferson, you have Adam Thielen, you have KJ Osborne. Amir Smith-Marset is on the come up and going into his second year. So keeping somebody who has the vote of the players and everybody else on the offense. I mean, the guy's a stud, and I think that he's an absolute must-need person for this coaching staff.
All right, on the money. She's a true pro.
I was watching the clock.
I think even with that said, Keenan, I was talking to him earlier, and he said he didn't need his guys' approval. He just wanted to be somewhere where he didn't have to build again, because all of his stops, he's been there 1 or 2 years, and now he gets to build on what he did last year. You can't ask for anything better than that. So good hire. Good pick on that.
Yeah, that was a good one. All right, Gabe.
Well,
Can you live up to the hype now?
I don't think I can. I don't think I can, but I'm going to go with Mike Smith, who is the new outside linebackers coach here at the Minnesota Vikings. He has a pass rush specialist to his title, and which I think is going to be key for this Minnesota Vikings team. If you look at his last 4 years as the outside linebackers coach, 3 in Green Bay and then 1 for the Kansas City Chiefs, he has had a player in his position group have at least 9 sacks in all 4 of those seasons. So when you look at this team and what he's done, and you add that resume to a DJ Wanham or Danielle Hunter or whoever's going to be on this team again, you look at that and say, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. This defense should be good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think that when this defense is switching to a 3-4 anyways, that you obviously need someone of his expertise to be coaching the outside linebackers. And, the names that he brought up, someone like a DJ Wanham, who even at points last year, we saw him as a stand-up, rushing from the edge, standing up. That's important to have somebody to hone that pedigree. And the pass rush for this team is a big focal point this offseason. How are they going to add to it? Which players from last year are we expecting to have bigger roles and be retained in this defense? So having somebody like Mike Smith here, coming over from Green Bay, as successful as their defense has been over the last few years, really big hire for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I'm actually going to switch it to the offensive side of things and say Curtis Modkins, the new running back coach, running game coordinator. You see a lot of this new youth movement around this coaching staff, and I think adding a little bit of experience on the offensive side is also going to be beneficial. You see him right there with the Broncos last season being able to get Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon to work as a tandem, both with 900-plus rushing yards. I think that that's promising and something that I want to see happen here, and it's nice to see almost like a tree. Everyone has their specific responsibilities, which is a great question that we got from you guys that we will get to in just a second. But let's keep it going.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to keep it going with our questions from you guys that Gabe and I got off of Twitter. They were really good this week. And this one is for you, Courtney. Who is more likely to be a Viking next year, Kirk Cousins or Danielle Hunter? Dustin also wants you to know you're going to be missed in Vikings land.
Thank you, Dustin.
And that Bears fans will be lucky to have you.
It's very kind of you. That's really, really nice. Thank you, Dustin. I'm going with Danielle Hunter. I know what the team has said publicly about Kirk Cousins, and they've got 4 weeks basically to decide kind of what's going to happen with his future. But the reason I say Hunter is because this pass rush is a priority, like we were talking about with Mike Smith. I know Danielle Hunter is coming off playing 7 games in 2 seasons, back-to-back years, ended by season-ending injuries. You know who knows his medicals better than anybody else in the NFL? It's the Minnesota Vikings. So if they can keep him at a more reasonable price, because he has that $18 million player option, roster bonus that's due to him the 5th day of the league year, I think he stays in purple next year because they need him for pass rush help.
Well, it was a great start for him in Minneapolis as far as the amount of games he played, only missing 2 in the last 7 seasons, or the first 7 seasons. But then, the injuries happened. Gabe, we're going to get to question number 3 from Sunset, the handle at Nike9 Sneakerhead.
Okay.
He says, seems like we poached the Rams. Is there a rule that prohibits this?
Well, I like the rule. Well, I like your Twitter handle, Sneakerhead, because I'm a low-key sneakerhead too. But
that's why I threw it in there for you.
I love it. But there is no rule. Usually when a head coach gets a new job somewhere else, he's pretty much fair game to who he wants to bring in. If he wants to get somebody from another team, granted that coach that's on the other team has to get approval by the GM. But if the GM allows him to get that interview, it's fair game. So it's kind of like the All-Star game, right? These new coaches are your LeBrons and your Michael Jordan, your LeBrons and Kevin Durant's, and it's like, hey, I want you on my team, and let's go from there. Let's make some money.
I think the really cool thing when new coaching hires happen is being able to trace their tree, right? Because Mike Pettin and Kevin O'Connell were together in Cleveland many moons ago. Curtis Modkins and Kevin O'Connell were together in San Francisco during the 2016 season. I was out there, so I remember seeing Curtis Modkins' name, I remember him. So, and being able to see Wes Phillips too, who came over to the Vikings from the Rams. He's filling that offensive coordinator role. And he's also, going to be a big part of what Kevin O'Connell's doing. We know that Kevin O'Connell's calling plays, but he'll kind of have what O'Connell's role was under Sean McVay, who calls plays in Los Angeles, and be a big part of building what they're going to do offensively and coming up with the week-to-week, day-to-day plan for that group.
Yeah, and we know that now is looking at the free agency. This coaching staff has that on their plate. And so this next question has to do with that. This is from Josh S. He says, what does the pro scouting department look like? And how does it set up the Vikings to be prepared for free agency? Courtney, we're going to let you take this one. 30 on the clock.
Sure. So, the pro scouting department has a very big month and a half really coming up with free agency in that first wave. So what it looks like is you've got Ryan Munnins and Jamal Stevenson. Both are co-directors of player personnel. Munnins over the pro side, Stevenson over the college side. Underneath them, you have Reed Burkhart, who's a director of pro scouting. Chris Blanco is, also in the pro scouting side as well. And I think the new addition here of Ryan Grigson, who is a personnel advisor who was brought over from Cleveland. He's worked with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah before. He's going to be a very big part of that. So when they go to the combine, they have these meetings with agents to figure out, who fits on our roster, who doesn't. That's their primary responsibility. While the college scouting guys are the ones who are doing, all the testing, everything else. The pro scouting people are talking to all the agents and trying to figure out what does free agency look like.
Yeah, and it's a good point you made about Ryan Grigson, because Ryan Grigson, he was a former GM for the Indianapolis Colts, and having that former GM experience, that adds value to Kwesi being a first-year GM. Sure. Hey, what are some of the mistakes that you made that you would have fixed when you were a GM? Hey, what are some of the wins? What are some of the losses? So I think Kwesi will learn from Ryan Grigson. This entire front office personnel will be better because of him and under Kwesi's control.
And I think one of the big things, too, for Ryan Grigson coming to Minnesota, when he was in Indianapolis, it's no secret, Andrew Luck got sacked a lot. So he knows the importance now in taking a step away from being in a GM role and then working with Seattle and working with Cleveland, the importance of investing in the offensive line, which is something we obviously know this team, really needs some work. And on the interior of the offensive line, it's kind of this, development that they're still trying to get right. They've got their bookends at tackle. So having someone like Ryan Grigson being, the football guy, the mind that can help Kwesi Adofo-Mensah guide his strategy in free agency, I think is a big thing.
Yeah, they have a lot to worry about on the free agency side of things, but also when it comes to the scheme. And this next question is a really good question for Gabe. Coming from Forrester93, he says it's a little long, but I think it's really important to look at the details. The offensive staff structure is different than what we've been familiar with over the last several years. What are the responsibilities for a run game coordinator, pass game coordinator, offensive coordinator, and an offensive play calling coach?
So if we're in meetings, I'll just put you in a meeting room. So a run game coordinator, for say, he goes over all of the run cut-ups from the last 4 weeks of the opponent. And once he goes through those run cut-ups, he talks to the offensive line and says, hey, this is where those guys like to blitz. This is where those guys like to send pressure or send schemes or send shoots and blitzes. And then for the pass game coordinator, he looks at it and says, okay, well, this is the coverage they like to run in third down. This is the coverage they like to run in second down. They don't call the plays, but usually during the game, they give advice to the coach when there are dead moments in the game or a timeout to basically say, hey, we need to make some adjustments here because this is what they're giving us, whether that's run game or pass game. So that's a very simplified version, but those guys do not call plays. They work with the coordinators to make sure everything is going as planned.
I was about to say, that's a very, very tough question to answer in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So well done. I mean, it's almost like you played football or something.
You would think.
But I think it's really interesting, the structure of this offensive staff versus what it was previously in Minnesota. And obviously, you know, a couple of years ago, they had a dedicated run game coordinator. And then when Rick Dennison ended up not coaching the offensive line last year, they kind of divvied up those responsibilities. I think it is a job that should be dedicated to one person, as Gabe was mentioning. Think about all those things that they have to do to go over to make sure that your run scheme will work from a week-to-week basis. And same thing with the passing game coordinator as well. So there's a lot of moving parts here in a lot of different roles. And Kevin O'Connell is certainly building this staff to how he feels is going to modernize this offense and be able to give a lot of different responsibilities to a lot of different people.
And I think it's interesting just to have a running backs coach as a run game coordinator. It's usually the offensive line coach that is the run game coordinator. So Kevin O'Connell is looking at this from a forward-thinking perspective, like, okay, my running back has to run. I want to call the plays and puts them in good position.
Yeah, well, if it's okay with you, Gabe, we're going to let this last question go to Courtney.
That's cool.
She is moving on, as we said earlier in the show, to ESPN Chicago, and we are going to miss her so much around here. But Garth Malone, sorry if I butchered your last name, he's asking, what is one of your most favorite, memorable times in covering the Vikings? And, you know, Courtney, we'll give you 3 answers for
Thank
this
you.
one.
just like my answer with Keenan McCardle, I bent the rules here a little bit.
That's good.
I had so many as I was trying to think about this and all that I covered here for 5 seasons.
Yeah.
It's the longest place I've ever been professionally. And I'll start out like in 2017, the Week 15 game against the Cincinnati Bengals, which turned out to be a blowout, but I had watched Teddy Bridgewater come back from that horrific knee injury. And this was the first time during that season that we got to see him on the field and hearing Case Keenum leading the Teddy chant and watching US Bank. I mean, you can see Teddy right now trying to get the play in his headset because he was so loud. I'm talking about it. I've got chills coming up my body right now because that was incredible, because I wasn't here when Teddy's knee injury happened in 2016, but every day at Winter Park when I'd go out, we had to make the long walk to go to the locker room or to availability, you'd see Teddy on that side field getting work in and watching him come back, and my first year really getting to interact with him. It was truly inspiring, and that moment was just absolutely incredible.
What about the next one? What's your number 2-ish, maybe? We'll say they're all ones.
I think the Minneapolis Miracle has to be on anyone's list who's covered this team in the last couple years. And, for me, I remember specifically watching that last play. I had 5 different windows open on my computer of like, if they lose and it's a close game, here's this. And if they win, and all these, nothing prepared me for this to happen. And I remember almost like in real time watching the level of noise. I say watching the level of noise because you could literally just feel it in your body as Diggs crosses into the end zone and then he chucks his helmet, and Caleb Jones, former wide receiver, is the first one to give him this bear hug. I tend to think I might have actually mentally blacked out there for a minute because my colleague Kevin Seifert at ESPN, I remember he came over to me and he's on my left side of my body, like as I'm trying to process and watch, I was watching through my binoculars. All right, gather your reactions, like who's doing what, where's Mike Zimmer, where's Everson Griffin, where's Case Keenum, where's Diggs? And Kevin had come up to me and was just like, I don't remember what he said, but he said I just was pale white, and just because I'm trying to process all of this and covering a game winner like that for them to go to the NFC Championship in such a magical year for this team when a lot of people wrote them off, early on after Sam Bradford's knee injury early on in the season. That was truly incredible. That'll always be at one of the top of my list.
Yeah, and let's put a period on this statement career that you've had so far here and your final memory.
I mean, seeing Justin Jefferson and what he's done the first 2 seasons of his NFL career, I've always wanted to cover greatness, and I covered it in the NBA, seeing the Golden State Warriors win 2 titles. And now being able to watch Justin Jefferson and I'll never forget it, the game against Tennessee, his first moment, he got to Gritty in the end zone, and during the offseason, he taught me how to do it too, and I didn't fail miserably, but he's an absolute star.
Yeah.
And this franchise, this fan base, appreciate him for every moment that you have him on the field, because he is going to be
superstar.
I mean, he's going to go down as one of the greats to do it, because we are seeing it happen so early in his career. And I'm just like, I've just been in awe of him. Like every single time that I get to watch him play, for me, and covering all of that and seeing how he's grown amidst becoming a superstar is truly remarkable. And I really appreciate that about my time here.
Well, Courtney, you are a star, and it's only rising as you take your talents to Chicago. We will miss you here, but as Gabe and I already said before you came on the set, we expect you here to talk Bears when those matchups come up
twice a year. Can't get rid of me.
Maybe 3 times.
Well, thank you so much, and best of luck.
Thank you.
For Gabe, Henderson, Courtney, Cronin, I'm Tatum Everett. If you want to submit your questions to Pick 6 in the future, look for Gabe and I's tweets at Tatum Everett, at Gabe A. Henderson. We wish you the best, Courtney. Thanks for doing this.
Appreciate you, CC.
Yeah, we'll see you next time, guys.